This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Alright, so we're still following the story of Yacht Amadea in Fiji. So if you remember, she arrived in Fiji after crossing the Pacific Ocean from Mexico. She arrived in Fiji on the 12th of April and she was immediately boarded and detained by the Fijian government with the FBI in tow. Now, the vessel was on sale last year for 340 million euros, and she was actually sold last year to who we believe is her new owner, Suleiman Kerimov, who has been sanctioned by the UK and the US based on his relationship or his close ties to the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin. So the captain was initially given 2 infringements, and we talked about these in the last video, and basically, very short version is there were 2 infringements that were to do with how the vessel arrived in Fiji, and also pertaining to how the crew they didn't do the paperwork properly for disembarking of crew. That's the infringement that was given to the vessel, to the captain of the vessel. But then after that, the following day, the money laundering was added to the list of charges against the vessel. So I reported in the last video that there was a crew change, and they were trying to bring on new crew and disembark the outbound crew, and the ongoing captain, the security officer, and it turns out the chief officer, who were flying into Fiji to relieve the people on board, they were all detained in LA. Now, what happens when you fly through LA, unlike most other airports in the world, when you're in transit, you just stay in the airport, you don't go through immigration, and you just go to your next flight and continue. But in LA, it's different. I've been through it many times myself, and you have to land in the US, and essentially you go out through customs and immigration, and then you have to go back in, and then you get on your plane. Now, this is where I had imagined that these guys have all been stopped. They were held for 20 hours, up to 20 hours, I'm told by a source. And ultimately, they were actually deported from the US and sent back to where it is ever they came from. I would assume it was the UK for the captain, because apparently he's British. I don't know whether he flew from the UK, so I'm not going to make any assumptions. But he was deported anyway. Now, what I've been told by sources is that they were actually banned from re-entering the US for 5 years. Apparently, about half of the crew are changing, and the other crew members managed to make it to Fiji, and they were allowed to embark the vessel. But the off-going crew, the ones that they were coming to replace, they've been detained, so they're still on board. So there's been no changeover. There's just been the addition of all of these extra crew members, which is going to cause problems on the vessel because they've got nowhere for them to sleep, right? I would imagine they will use some of the guest cabins for this period while they've got all these extra people on board. Also, according to sources, all of the crew were questioned at length by the FBI and Fijian authorities, and they were shown photographs of different people and asked which one is the owner. So because all the crew have been detained on board, I would imagine that they needed provisions at some point, food and stuff like that. And I've been told that some of the crew have been allowed to go ashore, which is probably for provisions, but they're being escorted by private security company. So I did ask, Imperial Yachts is the company that manages Amadea, and I did ask them for a statement, but they didn't get back to my email, so there was no response from the emails. Okay guys, moving on to the next story, and this one is out of Hamburg in Germany, and it's referenced Yacht Luna, beautiful blue-hulled vessel, 115-meter vessel, was originally built for Roman Abramovich, but is now owned by Azerbaijan Farkad Akhmedov, and the vessel's 115 meters or 377 feet. Mr. Akhmedov has been sanctioned this week by the EU, and the UK have followed suit, and the vessel, as a result, the vessel has not formally been arrested, but the vessel is stranded in Germany, in Hamburg in Germany. It's actually in the dry dock right next to where Dilbar is. As you can see in these photographs here, So if you remember, if you watch my channel, if you're an OG and you've been watching my channel for a few years, you'll see there was a series of videos on a divorce battle between Mr. Akhmedov and his former wife, and the vessel was actually in Dubai, and it was stranded in Dubai because it was actually arrested by the courts in Dubai, and it was there for 3 years, and they went through a lot of problems out there, and then eventually the former couple reached an agreement. The vessel was released, and it came back. It just came back into Europe and headed straight to Lursen to go into refit, and that's where she's been ever since. And now the owner has been sanctioned. So, but like I said, the vessel has not been arrested, but because of the sanctions against Mr. Akhmedov, he's had to lay off all the crew, and because he can't pay them because his assets are frozen, and also the management companies that look after the crews have had to stop doing any business with Mr. Akhmedov because of the fact that he's been sanctioned, right? So what's happened is I believe also he's applied for a license to be able to access those funds to pay the final salaries of the crew that have been laid off. And Lursen has actually employed a skeleton crew, as they did with Dilbar, and to look after the vessel. And it's actually in a dry dock, and it's like a few hundred meters away from Dilbar in the same location. So that's now 2 dry docks in Lursen. I don't know whether it's a Lursen dry dock, but I believe it is, and they're both right next to each other. So that's now another dry dock out of commission, right? So there was a statement released by Mr. Akhmedov. I'll put the whole thing on the screen, but I'm just going to read a section from it. And he says, I'm a self-made businessman, and I never have been a so-called Kremlin puppet. He says, both the UK and the EU are fully aware, and both stated that I was a business person and not an oligarch. And then he went on to say that I will be appealing these unlawful and unjust sanctions accordingly. So I'll keep you up to date with that as soon as I have something, guys. But that's it for tonight. Relatively quick video for me. If you've got any questions, put them below. If you've got any information about any of these stories or any other stories that I didn't cover tonight, please get in touch along the usual way. The about page of the YouTube channel, you'll find a way to contact me there, also through Facebook Messenger. But thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.